Welcome, everyone, to the Insurance Perspective Podcast. I'm excited to be joined today by Michael Ley, HawkSoft Director of Agency Networks. This is the first episode in a multi-episode series recorded at the 2026 HawkSoft User Group National Conference in Arlington, Texas. We hope you enjoyed today's discussion, and be sure to follow the podcast on Apple, Spotify, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you. Michael Ley is a former independent agency owner and now works closely with insurance networks across the country to help agencies build smarter technology ecosystems. Michael focuses on data strategy, operational efficiency, and helping independent agencies remain competitive in an increasingly connected marketplace. Michael, thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
And welcome to the show.
Absolutely.
These are super important, valuable topics to our industry, so I'm really looking forward to discussing them. We're going to get into networks and technology audits. So let's start with networks. What would you say are red flags you should be looking for when joining a network?
Absolutely. Let me back up first with a lot of times networks, aggregators, and clusters are all used interchangeably. And so people are always like, what is it? They think of their network, and I get a lot of emails at HawkSoft. It's people trying to get me to work on their network. And I'm like, no, I'm not the technical person. Like I don't do the cabling and that kind of stuff, but we're setting that up. But yeah, networks, aggregators, and clusters are used interchangeably inside the industry. And there's a way to differentiate between the three in reality. But some of the biggest red flags that are out there when you're interviewing a network and saying, hey, is this the right strategy for me? Is this the right thing? What are your goals that you're trying to achieve? And that's, I think, the biggest thing out of an agency when you're going into it is, what do I need to look for? What do I need to look at? Because every network or aggregator is going to be a little different. If it's really just the bonus potential that you're looking for, or the alignment with some carriers, that's one thing. But you want to choose, as you're choosing and interviewing your network, and interview 2 to 3, at least if not more. Yep. What are the red flags? Are they being vague when they are answering your questions? Talk to them about, hey, what is that typical agency that you're looking for? And that sort of thing. If they're really pushy from the start, they're trying to push you to sign a contract or get to the next step, that's not something that you really want to align yourself with. So to look for those red flags off the start, and again, do your homework with trying to determine what network is going to be the best for me potentially.
What might be some examples of doing your homework?
So as you're looking at their websites and everything, see what are the things that they offer. If they have, certain things that they're maybe it's just that carrier alignment and bonus potential and for premium and revenue share. But do they offer educational opportunities? Do they give you potential customers, other agencies to talk to and get their experience? Yes. That's a big one. You want to talk to some other agencies about their experience. Look out on social media, on Reddit and stuff like that. Gauge what else is out there too. But also do your homework and do your own interview too, because somebody else's experience isn't always the same that you're going to have too.
What would you say are the 3 must-ask questions when looking to join a network?
I would always start with, okay, what happens if I cancel?
Yep.
I mean, that's a big one. What happens if I want to walk away? Am I locked into an agreement long-term? What is that buyout potential? That sort of thing. What happens do I have to align all of my carriers? Or is it a select few carriers that I have to align with? What's the buy-in potential and everything there? Those are really the top ones, because everyone's going to want to know what's it going to cost me to get out of here. And depending upon the network, that's the big thing. What's the monthly fee? Is there a buy-in? What's the monthly if I have a monthly fee in that? But then also, what are agencies my size? Ask them, what are the agencies my size? Things that are going well for them, things that they struggle with. How could you be of help to the network? Not just by bringing your book of business there, but what are your strengths in your agency that maybe some other agencies need assistance with? And then also, what are the tech stack? What are the things that I can get by joining your network and things too?
What are 3 things they can do to benefit agencies? What networks can do to benefit agencies?
One thing that networks are really starting to do very well is building a tech ecosystem for agencies to kind of look at, hey, these are the things that we have vetted and we're offering to our members. And that could be an agency management system, it could be a CRM, it could be e-signature tools and things like that. But you get discounts and perks for having everything kind of aligned. It also helps with that network by having the resources to get reports out of those systems and everything, so they can help you grow. So it's not just on the tech side of things, but they offer tech and give some things that maybe you're not familiar with inside your agency that can help you grow. Yeah. Another thing that I would really look at that networks are really helping with is the perpetuation planning, and making sure there is that exit. I know when I was in the agency, that's not something that my family ever really wanted to talk about. It's like, you know, dad's always going to be here. Right. My siblings are always going to be here. But what is that next step? And always have that out there, or to plan for that and things there. So a lot of these networks are helping with perpetuation planning, but also education, and in routine education. We just think because we have the license and we do the CE every year, that's really all I need. Yeah. But there's a lot of other things out there to kind of understand. Maybe it's social media, or maybe it's things that really aren't in tune with insurance, that these networks are helping with as well in education.
I think one of the most important things you said was to interview 2 or 3 others.
Absolutely, 100%.
I've told people in the past that when I went to go independent, I would have been looking at what I was trying to gain was market access.
Yep.
And I wouldn't know what questions to ask, and I would have made a big mistake.
Absolutely.
So by interviewing 2 to 3 others, and you get a feel for it, right?
Absolutely.
It's like going to buy a car.
Absolutely.
You go to the first dealership you go to, oh gosh, this price looks good, but you don't know what else is out there. You don't know what the market looks like.
Absolutely.
So I thought that was great advice.
Absolutely. It's essential, I think, when you're hiring someone, you don't generally just hire the first person that you interview. You interview a couple different people.
That's right.
And so, you want to do the same thing when you're trying to align your business with another affiliate out there.
What would you say are the biggest mistakes that agencies make when getting involved with a network?
Not reading the contract.
Yeah.
Ultimately, and I joke about it a lot when I do presentations, when I talk to agencies, I said, as an agent, we would sit there and our customers don't even read their contracts that we have them sign for their auto, home, commercial insurance, right? So we do the exact same thing. And that's not just on the network side, that's any contract. We don't read our carrier contracts. We don't read the network contract. We don't read the technology contract. So that, I think, is one of the biggest things that a lot of agents don't do, is they don't do their due diligence with understanding that. And not only if they don't understand it, because a lot of it is legal terms, send it over to their attorney. Have somebody review it. I think that's a big thing to do.
And if you don't, we've all heard the horror stories that people that try to get out of them, it can cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars. And that's not an exaggeration.
Right, absolutely.
That's why it's important. So lean on other people. Don't be afraid to ask questions.
Absolutely.
That's a great one.
And I would also say with some of the networks, and some of them get bad names because they do have a heftier exit clause and everything. And they're like, oh, well, you can't join that network, or you shouldn't join that just because of that. And that's not necessarily the case. They have that they have that clause in there for a reason, and they may actually provide more value to you than what some of these others are. It may look great to have a $200, $300, $500 monthly fee without a buy-in and without an exit clause. But what is that fee getting you compared to something else that another network could help? You gain a little bit more inside your agency. So,
give me an example of what resources we might be able to lean on to get information on some of these clusters. There's maybe, whether it's the insurance Facebook groups, it's all over the place. That's one area. Reach out to those people. Any other resources?
On our website, we do have, at the top of our website, you can search for our networks and everything. We do have a networks page of all of the ones that we have agreements with, or that we have a memorandum with, and that we work with. But there's also a guide on there that talks about these questions to ask, what to look for, what are going to be some red flags and everything too. So there's a guide. It's system agnostic. It's not going to be anything that kind of talks about one particular network over another. So I always kind of drive people there. There's also the Insurance Networks Alliance. A lot of the tools are out there to kind of look at what these networks are and everything as well. But also check with your Big I, check with your PIA, your state associations, which ones are involved in your state, and everything too. Again, go back out to social media, ask their opinions. Look at, if you are a HawkSoft user, talk to some of the other HawkSoft users. Whether you're on another platform as well, talk to those users. What do they have experience with?
Let's change gears to tech audits.
Okay.
Which is the theme of so many things, so I love this discussion.
Absolutely.
First off, tell us what a tech audit might look like, and if you can give us kind of an example of what that is.
When I was an agent, and when I've talked to agencies over the years, we all attend conferences, or you see the newest thing out there, and you're like, I got to do a demo. I got to look into that. Or you find out that agency down the street is using this new platform, and you're like, hey, let's look at that. And you get that shiny tech syndrome, and you want to sign up for it. And that's great. There are a lot of amazing tools out there. Right now, we see it a lot with AI.
Yep.
And it seems like every week we have some new vendor out there. The issue with that is you can become, you look at your tech budget, or if you start looking at your profit and loss statement over the last year, you kind of see that and you're like, no, wait a minute, I spent that much in technology.
Yeah, you can be $100 to death.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so I think that's where, when I started talking about tech audits, or I started talking to some agencies, and I would always look at my bottom 10 to 20% of my customers every year. Which ones are costing me the most pain? Which ones are, claims out the wazoo, or whatever the case may be. So I took that mentality and I really started looking at that in at the tech aspect, really. And so we kind of look at the tech audit, and it's really looking year after year at that, what technology you're currently using inside your agency, and going through that process of, should I be using this differently? Is it still aligned with my goals and what we're trying to accomplish? Does it integrate with what we currently already have? What can I shed? Because as things change, I mean, we look at it with HawkSoft and stuff like that too. HawkSoft has changed dramatically over 10 years. And so there's things that we've added to the platform that maybe you don't need a third-party vendor for, and everything. So learn what's happening inside your current platforms and determine if I need another tool or not. And then shed that if you don't need it.
Yeah.
And so it's really the basis behind the tech audit, and trying to look at, hey, again, what can I save money on, but also what's out there that I am not necessarily using to its full potential.
So how might I approach that? Let's just say that if I have a quote data collection program,
Yep.
how might I audit that to determine if we're really utilizing that and if it's worthwhile keeping?
First off, find the person that actually uses that system inside your agency. As an agency owner, there's times that we would purchase tools and we weren't the ones using them.
Right.
And so it's like, I don't necessarily know what it's doing and that kind of thing, but have the person that utilizes that tool go through it. Are there things that you're not using inside of it? What features are now there? I think also looking at then having somebody else inside the agency try to figure it out. And is this a tool? So then you have two people. That's a different perspective inside the agency. But we would always do it in fourth quarter every year as we're starting to goal plan for the next year. What are our goals for the next year inside the agency, growth-wise, carrier alignment-wise, and that sort of thing? And are the tech tools aligning to that, those goals? But then also now, does it integrate with our AMS? We want to save clicks. We want to save time and energy. And if your goal is on sales or if it's on service, what are those tools that are there? And so it's really starting to go through every aspect, every window of that platform, what's not working, what is mapped, what is working, and determining, saying, okay, you know what, this may not be the tool for us. Or we found out there's this new feature that we don't even know what it is. Okay, do we need to learn that? I was in a session earlier today, and it was a vendor question. And the lady asked me, she said, okay, we use this, but how can we get that to finally sink into HawkSoft? And I'm like, I'm actually glad you asked that. I said, because about 3 months ago, that actually came into play here in HawkSoft. And so I said, yes, we do press releases, we send out things, but as agents, we know that you don't always read all of the emails that come out to you and everything. So sometimes you have to get in the system and play with what are the new features, what has changed over the last year. And then that way you can kind of align with, all right, I don't need this thing anymore because now it does it over here.
How often would you say is maybe a good idea to run these tech audits?
At least every year.
Yeah.
At least every year. And again, when you're doing your goal planning, you're doing some reviews with staff and everything, find out the tools that they're using.
Yeah.
You all have technology in your agency. And again, like we just said, not every person inside the agency uses every tech piece. But so find out what are the tools that they're using, because you as an agency owner might sit there and say, well, I'm paying for this, but you're not using it. Well, why aren't you using it? Just like we never used a rater inside my agency, but I was paying for one.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, well, we can shed that expense at least at that point.
Yeah. They say that 20 to 30% of our tech programs are being, underutilized.
Absolutely.
Why would you say that is?
When you launch with a platform, tech vendor, whatever the case may be, you spend a lot of time trying to set it up.
Yep.
And
It doesn't come out of the box like the demo that you looked at.
Exactly. And so you spend a lot of time setting that up, which is great, but then you don't continue to educate yourself on the new features. You don't continue to learn what are some of the nuances and things like that with it. You don't have a champion inside your office that you've tasked with doing that. You don't always have to be that as the agency owner. You can assign that to somebody else in the agency. You know what? I need you to own that tech and understand everything about it. When they have webinars, when they have new things that come out, I want you to understand it and train us on it. If you don't have that kind of a process inside your agency, you are going to fall behind. And then that's when you find yourself 5 years down the road, you now have all of this tech that you're spending money on, and you don't understand why.
Yeah. I learned, my approach has been, I won't even look at something or consider something until I build a process around it.
Absolutely.
And how we're going to implement it and how I'm going to implement it with my team. Because if I don't do that, they're most likely not going to go in and figure it out themselves. So I'll explain why we're using this, what we're using it for, what the purpose is, and here's how we're going to do it. And I'll develop a written process.
Absolutely.
For me, otherwise, I've learned if I don't do that, I'm probably wasting money.
Absolutely,
and
100%.
Time and not utilizing it. So
and I like what you said there with the why. It's getting the buy-in from the team. And we implemented a CRM in the agency at one point. And everyone's like, why are we spending the money on this? Why, our office manager's looking at it and she's like, we see this come out, we see this come out, we see this come out. But she's not the one using it. She's not using the CRM because that's not her job. So you have to explain that why and how that's going to benefit the agency, the time saver that is going to help inside the agency, get their buy-in, get them to understand the why, have them sit through the demos as well. Is it something they're going to utilize? Is there another, again, we were talking about interviewing networks. If you're looking at CRM, interview 2 or 3 CRMs. Find the one that's going to match you and your agency. Yeah.
And again, we all want to chase these shiny objects, right? I went on one, I looked at an AI platform, it was awesome, looked awesome, and I just told them, okay, I have to wrap my head around it, and I have to figure it out, otherwise we're just not going to use it. What mistakes do agency owners make when trying to judge the return on investment on their tech?
Again, with that shiny tech syndrome, you just yes, I'm going to spend $100 on that. That's great, and it's $100 per month. Now you're spending $1,000, over $1,000.
It's only $100.
Right? Yeah. Look at the true cost of it, and now, okay, what's the setup time frame? What do I have to do to set it up? In that timing, the integrations. What integrations can I already use? So, okay, you might have that CRM that plugs in with your AMS. Is it pulling the data already over? Do I have to set that up? How does that work? Because you don't want to do duplicate entry. And so I don't think a lot of agents look at, or not just agents, but anyone inside the agency looks at all of the nuances, all of the little things that go into that platform. So it's not just the connection, it's not just the cost, but it's the time of setting it up. It's the time of learning it every year. It's the time of making sure the data is correct in all of it, and making sure everything's integrated properly. So you do have all of those tools, and while we talk about CRMs a lot in right here, your CRM can integrate with your AMS, your e-signature, your phone system, and so there's all of those integrations that can play together.
I think what you said, which is key that we've all learned the hard way, is the time to set it up. And we're not aware of that.
Correct.
And then you have to devote that time, make that, and then what happens? Then we get frustrated, right? Because I saw it do this. It can do this. Yeah, but
then a month in, you're under contract,
right.
6 months,
That's
a year, or whatever. Now you're paying for it, and you're like, it's only 10% set up. So,
which I think leads into the next piece, but what does a strong training plan look like when an agency brings on a new piece of tech?
I like how you actually said you had to come. You looked at it in your agency, but now you have to build that process. What do I want it to do inside the agency? What is the buy-in, and get everyone involved with that too. And it's not just you, as an agency owner, you can look at it and say, this is what I want it to do and how I want my staff to utilize it. But now you have to get the buy-in from the team. They understand the why. Get them involved in that process. Because again, if it's not me that's utilizing that tech platform, it's them for what they're doing in their workflows. I don't necessarily be the one, I don't need to be the person to design that workflow. I need them to help design that. So they're getting the buy-in because they're going to be the ones that are using it. I don't want them frustrated in using it. I want them to help build it as well. So I think that's one of the biggest things, is making sure that for education purposes, finding that process, making sure that's aligned as you're launching the product, but also now ask the vendor, how often do you do updates? How are we aware of that?
Yeah.
Work that into your continuing education inside your agency as well.
Last question, and I love this one. Tech tools can be used to solve bottlenecks in an agency. What's the biggest red flag that an agency is trying to buy its way out of a process problem?
I would actually say when somebody is going to say, we need a tool for this, why? Determining that why. Determining exactly we need an e-signature vendor. Okay, great. Yeah, we can do that. There's a plethora of them out there. But if it doesn't connect to the other pieces, if it's a platform that there's too many clicks, there's too many, the workflow is not there. Not understanding that aspect of it. So you're trying to find a tool to fix one issue rather than trying to find a tool that can help with multiple. And I think that's the biggest issue. A lot of agents, when they're doing tech audits, they go back and they realize, oh yeah, I purchased this because I needed the sales pipeline. I purchased this because I needed this. When in reality, that tool could actually, one tool could do multiple things.
So I think you bring up a really good point. So especially for those of us, when we're at a conference right now with vendors, what are some questions that we should ask before we jump into this new piece of tech? What maybe we should ask if this is going to solve the problem? How is this handled? What is the support? What suggestions would you have for asking and vetting this new piece of tech?
Inside your agency, if everyone's in agreement, that's a problem. We could all be in agreement and say, yes, we need this tool to fix this issue. But there's always going to be that one person that's going to play devil's advocate. And I always love that, because now it gets me to think outside of solving that issue. Now I need to understand why that became an issue. Yes, we need to solve it, but is there something that led to that issue inside the agency that maybe needs fixed over here first?
Right.
So it's going back through and figuring out your processes and things there. But as you're determining that why and to fix that issue, now it's okay, what other tools do you already have inside the agency? Look at that, make sure it integrates with those tools. How is it going to be a time saver for you inside the agency? We don't want to just add a product, add a service, add a tool, just to add a tool for the sake of it.
Yeah.
And so again, going back to that why, finding the buy-in, but also finding why there is that issue inside the agency to fix.
Yeah. Yeah, great stuff. I think we can talk about this for a long time.
We really could. We really could.
Thank you so much for being here today, taking the time during the conference to sit down with us. We truly appreciate it. For contact information on today's guest, please look in the description. Thank you everyone for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Insurance Perspectives Podcast.